Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Absolute Sim Racing, and welcome to another race evening here in the Race Anywhere World Series US. We're here for Season 2, the very start of this wonderful, wonderful championship, and we're at the home of British motorsport. Silverstone is the circuit that will play host to the very, very first round. My name, of course, is Chaz Draycott. I was with you at Suzuka not long ago. But alongside me tonight, I have a good friend of mine in the box with me, Ed May, jumping in for the first time this season. Ed, we were just saying beforehand how much we both love GT3 cars at Silverstone. This is going to be a corker of a night to get this season underway, isn't it?
Oh, it really is, yeah. Thank you, Chaz, and of course, thank you, Absolute Sim Racing. Been away from the channel for a little while. You might recognise me if you've watched former series on here, but of course, to be here for the Race Anywhere World Series events, they're always a treat. I tend to catch them if I've got a free moment during the day. The European ones are more in my time frame. I think I covered one of the rounds last season at Road America, which was a real corker to be sure, and I'm fairly certain that these Americans, they aren't going to disappoint, even if they're in our stomping ground, Chaz, the, like you mentioned, home of British motor racing, Silverstone.
Yes, indeed. These guys will not disappoint. They are going to have a hell of a lot of fun out there. Plenty of wonderful GT3 machines to look at and a lot to enjoy. Dave Meneno, currently fastest in the SRT eSport machine. He is currently top of the pile. And then it's James Pierce, who qualified on pole at Suzuka. Logan Vida, currently third fastest overall. Of course, fastest in his class. You have the classes on the left-hand side, but it's that Lamborghini of Meneno, fastest once again. He ended up winning the race at Suzuka. We've got Michael Fowler in all sorts of traffic, though. Look how many cars we've got together in the middle of the field here. I think, to be honest, Ed, traffic may actually be an issue for some of these guys tonight.
Especially through this section we're coming into now, Maggots, Beckett's, and then all the way through into Chapel before you get onto the Hangar Straight, where you can finally have a chance to pass all of those cars. But of course, Michael Fowler not on a flying lap, so he's, if he was on a flying lap, was definitely held up by the traffic and chose to abort it. Or, oh my word, just look at that. This is just like the British motorways, isn't it? They're right at home here.
It really is. There's been a bit of contact in the car around. That's two of the Ferraris crashing into each other. I'm not quite sure which ones that was. We have a few Twisted Racing cars with their new livery for this Ferrari, which is great to see this evening. The slight difference there that Michael Fowler doesn't have the spec map on his car, so it doesn't have the metallic effect on it. That's why it appears white, and the other ones appear to be all sorts of metallic and so on. But last time out, they were running solid white cars with Twisted Racing written up the side in Comic Sans and big kittens at the side of the machine. It was quite entertaining, I must say.
Well, you can see some very nice liveries here. Jason Bridges in the high side Hustlers motorsport car. Big beefy Mercedes AMG GT3 pounding its way through cops, actually making the corner without contacting another car. Strange for a Mercedes through there.
Ooh. Wow. Controversial.
No, it's very, very upcoming and relevant.
Politics.
Oh.
This is Ryan Koprovsky in what I've been calling the Ukrainian Air Force livery, the Riddle Rocket Racing Lamborghini. There's two of them out there on circuit this evening. The other one, actually, I say that, I can't see the other one in the order. Oh no, it's Wilson Brewer. Wilson Brewer in car 62. He's currently fourth fastest at the moment, although I believe there was another one of them at the season opener. We have Leiden Lee as well. Hello. A car goes backwards in front of him there for just a second. I don't think that is a picture of Leiden in particular in the bottom left of your screen. Either that or he needs a shave. But the Lamborghini certainly doesn't need a shave. It's a very, very bright and colourful livery, isn't it? It certainly catches the eye. Does the Heyman Motorsports car. Very, very bright as it comes down the straight. Casey Metzger, he's a driver that really intrigues me here. He's the Twisted Racing driver in the American style livery they have, although somebody needs to sort the spec map out because the whole thing is completely chrome. But either way, the stars and stripes adorning that livery as well. Great to see a little bit of a, well, an air display.
Give us a
almost.
good view of both sides there.
Yeah, indeed. Now, this is the Turnburn moto car of John Cooper. I was looking forward to seeing this car because I don't quite think he had a full-blown livery for it at Suzuka, but he's got this gorgeous sort of synthwave orange and purple fade and gradient down the side of it with the green highlights. That's a good-looking bit of kit, that, isn't it?
That's nice. That's like a proper simple iRacing livery that does work so well, doesn't it? John Cooper and the Turbo Moto guys do a very good job there with the Audi, but it's very difficult to make an Audi paint look bad. I think it's just a nice shape of a car. You can see you can work with the angles. It does look something else.
Does look very tasty indeed. Got a couple of cars just recovering. That's Casey Metzger getting back on the road in his Ferrari after having his moment. One of the Porsches there screaming its way down the straight. Mark Sigelkow in the 034 Motorsport Porsche, a driver that was not at Suzuka. Another nice livery, a realistic one as we would call it. Nice to see a few more Lamborghinis and all sorts out there again tonight, because very much at Suzuka the story of the day was Ferrari, Ferrari, Ferrari. Despite a Lamborghini winning the race, I think every other podium position in all three classes was filled with Ferraris, which just shows you how good that car is now, that GT3 Evo version.
This Tom Cornett, Team Prem Red in BMW here. I haven't seen many BMWs out on track, even though I think this is a circuit that should really play to this car's strengths. Lots of high, medium speed corners, really suits the wheelbase and just this general handling characteristics of the car. The only place where you'll expect it to struggle is in the slow direction speed corners, mostly coming into the Vale chicane. So that's where Tom Cornett is going to start to struggle towards the end of the lap. But for the rest, he should be very strong.
Well, now is the time to see. We're going to get the season first off, underway for the first time. Dave Menino and James Pearce make up the front row. This is the finishing order from the race at Suzuka last week, by the way. Jonathan Ouellette and Tyler Campbell on row 2, ahead of Ryan Koprowski and Harry Wills. John Cooper and Daniel Tenorio are on row 4, ahead of Lydon Lee and Jeremy Littleton in 10th place. Then it's Wilson Brewer in 11th, and we move on to our Pro-Ams, which is led by Dean Timms and Casey Metzger. Eric Kilaga and Logan Vida on row 2. Jay Steffi is 5th, ahead of Michael Kilaga. Then it's Errol Uriksoy and Joseph Smith. Brent Bravata and Andrew Rasmussen make up row 5, ahead of Jeff Carollo and Matthew Green on row 6. Behind them we have Mark Sigelkow and Gary Brown. Then the AMs, we have Stephen Martinez and Michael Fowler, Justin Delano and Matthew Plaisance. Donald Malcolm and Jason Bridges make up row 3, ahead of Drew Newbuyer and Daniel Floria. And then just at the back is Travis Kepler and Tom Cornett. Now, I keep meaning to call him Tom Coronel, but that's obviously not the case here. I'm not sure if you saw any of Suzuka last week, Ed, but still, it was very, very exciting racing. Dave Menino very much under the radar and creeped through to the front to take a victory. Do you think he can hold everyone off and take a win tonight?
I'll have to admit, I didn't catch all the action at Suzuka. I was nursing a week-long hangover after New Year's to see out 2021. I think it was, you can't begrudge me for needing to go as hard as I did on that day just to get through it all and then have to recover for the next 7 days. But of course, the first race of this 2021 season is about to get underway, or 2022 season is about to get underway.
Yeah, I keep doing that. I'm writing 2021 on my invoices still. But Dave Menino is going to lead us around the final corner. That gorgeous SRT eSport Lamborghini gets the second season of the Race Anywhere World Series underway for the US splits. Moves over to the left-hand side of the circuit and covers it off. Lovely, lovely stuff. The guys behind try and keep it clean. The Pro-Ams make their way across the line. Dean Timms leading the way with those guys. Casey Metzger is going to be second with him. Jay Steffi and Logan Vida just behind. They get going now. Not too much fanning out or jostling for position there, by the look of it. Jeremy Littleton, by the way, is for some reason way further down. We have him down as a pro, but he is down in 10th place in his class, but he is ahead of all of these AM drivers who are going to be the last class to cross the line. Stephen Martinez in the Vulture Motorsports blue car leads them away. Very tidy stuff so far, I'd say, Ed, but we might just jinx that here.
Yeah, usually all of the action happens into Village and the Loop here on these opening few corners. So you're going to see Daniel Florea with a very good run. Is he going to look down to the inside? No, he isn't, but a car that is looking down to the inside is, like you mentioned, that Ukrainian Air Force Riddle Rocket Racing car, Wilson Brewers. There's a car off on the inside that is not Eric Kulaga who was off. That is somebody else. But Eric Kulaga is down for us. Way up the back. It was Jason Bridges in the High Side Hustlers Motorsport car. All sorts of out of shape coming out of Village. But further up in front, in the lead of this race, Dave Menino.
Jonathan Ouellette right behind him now as well, started in third place. Then it's James Pearce, Tyler Campbell, Ryan Koprowski in the Riddle Rocket Racing car. Look at how close these guys have stayed together. Silverstone, quite a slipstream dependent circuit in certain places, especially there down the Hanger Straight. But Menino opening up quite a nice tidy gap in the first lap or so. That Lamborghini looks so good, although by the look of it, Tyler Campbell's had a slowdown penalty somewhere. He has to get out of the way. Whoa, 2 wheels over the curb, loses places to Harry Wills. Lydon Lee there going down the inside. He's got John Cooper behind. But then we take a look at the Pro-Ams, who aren't too far behind now. Bit of movement going on in the midfield there. Brent Bravata
down the inside of one car. I thought he was going to collect the second there. Great move from Brent Bravata. Bravado on the brakes from Brent. Great move there to get up into 4th place, and you can see that Pro-Am podium just up the road there. But what can Steffi do? Because of course he's got his sights on bigger things. He can see Casey Metzger and Dean Timms not far away either, very close at this early stage. You can see the back end actually of that Ferrari was kicking out just a little bit there. Jay Steffi, I think, really pressing the car to its absolute limits, but getting away with it now. Slow though, out of the loop. Could he be under pressure coming down into Brooklands?
Looks tidy so far, doesn't it? We've had an issue with Donald Malcolm in the Porsche, and that is very Porsche-esque. Love the livery, by the way, but just overdoes it on the way through Copse, and around she goes. Travis Kepler and Drew Newbuyer have had an issue. Unfortunately, the two of them, teammates, crashing into one another in the Premac machines. Lovely shot of just the detail that iRacing went into on that BMW M4. Unfortunately, they went into too much detail on the front end, but either way, I think just there, you could see that Travis Kepler went in too much detail in his own way with the back end of Drew Newbuyer's car. Something I've wanted to do since the start of this race, and I say that like it's been going on for 4 hours, is this. Hello.
Oh, pops and bangs.
Let's just listen on the overrun. Fantastic sounding 5.2 litre V10 in the back of the Lamborghini Huracan GT3. He's got the 2 V8 powered Ferraris behind him, twin turbo Ferraris of course. Jonathan Ouellette and James Pearce. Jonathan looking to the inside just to... Sorry, James looking to the inside just to fill the mirrors there. I think he might have had a slowdown at some point as well, you know. You can get them by running wide out of Stowe, can't you, at the end of the Hanger Straight?
You can also pick them up coming down into Beckett, just on the inside. That curb is notorious for picking up slowdown penalties there. It didn't look like James Pearce overstepped them up too badly coming into Stowe, it seems. But of course, these early slowdowns are so punishing because it doesn't have any time delta to go off of, so it just slaps a huge penalty on you, thinking, oh, that'll be about right. And it's always so much worse on the opening couple of laps, right up until obviously the rest of the race seems fine. But oh my word, Andrew was just trying to take a little bit too much coming into Stowe. Touch of the grass, we've all done it. It spins him round.
Yeah, indeed. He's got Moe and Shandon written up the side of the car. That certainly went off like the cork in a champagne bottle, didn't it? Let's have a look at how it looked from on board. He's just going to go over to the left, just touches the grass. And to be fair, I'd actually say that the Ferrari probably caught him off guard a little bit there because of the way that it moved over to the left-hand side of the track. And then all of a sudden, he found himself a little bit further over than he would have liked to be. It's very close in the Pro class, I must say, Ed. Ryan Koprowski in the Riddle Rocket Racing car right now is certainly holding up a bit of a train. Harry Wills is right behind him in the other 5.2 litre V10 chassis sharing Audi R8. Basically the same car underneath these two when it comes to the road cars. The GT3 cars, slightly different characteristics. Lambo feeling a lot more stable usually than the Audi. I've had a lot of bad nights racing the Audi R8 before, but when you get it hooked up, it's a hell of a machine, isn't it?
It is very nice though, just a touch. I think someone's having a little bit of trouble with the Audi. We're going to come to that in a bit though, because...
Oh, sorry.
Look at this. This was John Cooper. We're going to come to it now. Coming into... Oh, he just goes into the corner, understeers, and then all of a sudden the car goes into oversteer.
That's just the Audi. Honestly, through the high-speed stuff, the rear end of the Audi, it may as well not exist. It feels like there's no weight over the rear end, despite the engine being there. Harry Wills mounts the curb. Despite the engine being so far back in the Audi, it just does not feel like there's any weight over the rear end at all, and it's such a scary car to chuck into corners like this at the start of the lap. It's got a very skinny backside on it. It is not what would be described as thick, is the Audi. It's not chunky like the Lamborghini is, although Harry Wills is going to make it chunky. He's going to throw it down the inside. James Pearce is going to get a good view of this. Of course, he's dropped behind these pair. After that, and there you go, again, back end of the Audi steps out. He keeps his foot in it, needs to be careful, but rejoins just about in time. Dean Timms is not too far down the road, and he is leading the Pro-Am class at the moment. Ed, as again, off goes John Cooper.
Yeah, and is it again just the rear over-rotating, overtaking the front, this time into the slow-speed corners. This Audi is not looking too well balanced here at Silverstone, as Joseph Smith, the team Pramac, was that just a little bit overzealousness perhaps on the throttle, or was there a little bit of contact there? Car seems fine. We're going to see another incident. This is Jeff Garolo.
Needs to sort his numbers out.
There we go. That's
Sorry,
the
Jeff.
Porsche for you.
Yes,
rear
indeed.
over-rotating.
And this is what happens to Joseph Smith. So, yeah, like you say, just overzealous. And he does get a hit, quite a hit as well, from one of the Porsches just behind. So, bit of a scrappy opening few laps for some of these guys, but still, the rest of them, I mean, these pro guys having a phenomenal race at the moment. Look at these guys all together.
Here we go. Lyden Lee under a lot of pressure. You can see he's going to actually go to around the outside. You can defend around the outside into Stowe because that sets you up nicely for the inside into the Vale chicane, but can he hang it there? Can he keep his nose there? No. Instead go for the switchback maneuver. Look how close they were. Bumper to bumper action. Side by side dominate. This is touring car action in GT3s. They go 3 wide, and there's obviously inevitably going to be contact, and unfortunately Daniel tried to go for an opportunistic move down the inside, and he found himself getting squeezed, getting pinched, and unfortunately getting spun round.
There was a few bits going on there that weren't quite right. Daniel Tenorio, you'll see here, gets a great view of this. Lyden Lee tries to get the cutback, but he just lets the car run too far out wide, you see. Look, just makes contact with the number 3 machine of Tyler Campbell. Daniel Tenorio goes down the inside, slams on the brakes, but the car just turns in a little bit too late. He's a bit too hesitant being that close to the back of his teammate. And if I'm honest with you, that's not on Lyden Lee there. He had to turn in at some point, and Daniel has harmed his own race a little bit in that situation. We've got similar battles going on in the Pro-Am class as well, just inside the top 5. This is Bravata just behind Steffi, just ahead of Vida in the very menacing BMW M4. And we actually have similar in the AM class as well. Daniel Floria just behind Justin Delano. It seems like there's a Ferrari everywhere we look in this race, doesn't it? I mean, to be honest, counting them, there's a good 17, 18 of them in a 35 car field, so it is almost half the field is Ferraris in this, and bearing in mind we've got about 4 or 5 manufacturers involved.
They're a very popular car. They're obviously racing with the Evo variants of the GT3. And Ferrari just getting a little bit too excited on the throttle, running wide, but you can see the car is very stable. It doesn't seem to step out so much. If you're in maybe an Audi getting too excited on the throttle, that rear end is going to break on you. And again, Daniel Ferreira, he sends it into the corner, but the rear end just doesn't want to go on him. He's able to correct it. The car's, it's a little bit unstable, but in ways that you can recover, which means you get the confidence to push and push. And I think that helps out a lot of these amateur pro-ams to really extract the most. But look at this, down the inside. Wow, that was a great move, of course, that was Wilson Brewer, pro driver, going through on Michael Fowler, who didn't need to fight that. And I think you can see he was choosing not to, because very close behind, Stephen Martinez, Vulture Motorsport Blue. He's waiting for the opportunity to try and get the move done. Is he going to get a good run coming out of Chapel onto the hangar straight into Stowe?
I quite like how in your face the Vulture Motorsports livery is, actually. It's very, very bold indeed. But yeah, Michael Fowler not having to fight that there. Not quite sure why Wilson was flashing so much. It's not like he's a lapped car coming through. They are still battling for overall position. That's not what the points are decided on. The points are based on your class position, but either way, Wilson has to make the move himself there. He can't expect the other car to jump out of the way. For the overall race lead, Dave Menino only has about half a second from Jonathan Ouellette in the Ferrari. The Canadian driver, a privateer in this championship. No team that he's driving for in particular, but he's got the very shiny green livery all over it. It does have twisted colours on the car, so maybe just almost like a bit of a subcontractor for Twisted Racing as this season goes on. It's almost like he's in a Hulk livery, though, so hopefully the Hulk won't smash into the back of Dave Menino. But these two at the moment, I mean, look at the gap there, Ed. They are absolutely gone, aren't they?
Well, they are really rapid up at the front. In behind, though, I think they're being aided by the fact that these two are battling, keeping themselves nice and close, coming through Beggett's Chapel. It's good to see plenty of action here at Silverstone. It doesn't disappoint, and you can see now James Pearce, he's got the advantage in the Ferrari of the top end straight line speed, but the acceleration coming out of that Lamborghini Huracan, it's so stable on the throttle coming out of these slow speed corners. In fact, even through Stowe, a medium speed corner, you can see just how good it is at getting off and then onto the brakes. Very close indeed. Could have thought about sending a lunge, but realised it's only 12 minutes into a 1 hour and 15 minute race. No sense trying to throw it all away in one silly move.
Yeah, that's it. You can easily get ahead of yourself in races like this. Throw it down the inside, make a move that doesn't need to be made. Oh, as Brent gets a very, very good inspection of the back end of the BMW M4 there. Or is that a Lexus? But Logan Vida right in front of the Team Premac car. Very, very close together, these two. Great stuff to watch as ever. These fields are staying nice and compact in the middle at least. Oh, big understeer there by Brent as he goes through the first corner here at the updated Silverstone. We have, I believe, the biggest classes in the Pro-Ams here. We have 13 cars in class. Mark Sigelkow, Joseph Smith and Andrew Rasmussen in reverse order. Currently the three at the bottom of that pile. Behind Brent Bravata, we've got Errol Uriksoy, Michael Kulaga, Gary Brown and Matthew Green. And then Eric Kulaga in the other Ultra Motorsports car. But look at Brent Bravata here, all over the back of Ed's beloved M4. Down the inside into Brooklands he goes. Nice tidy stuff. And to be fair, Logan doesn't fight that one too hard there. He's just going to let him do his thing and potentially try and get a cutback on him. But as you probably learned by now, Ed, it looks like everyone's in the same team. They like a red, black, silver and white livery, these lot.
Yeah, a dash of blue, and you're away, aren't you, up in front of this fight. You can see exactly that, the red, white and blue of Casey Metzger, Twisted Racing, running very wide through Cops. That's going to be at least the 1X. I don't think it was a slowdown, but don't want to be doing that too much more in this race. There is, of course, a limit on the amount of incident points you have before drive-through penalty is applied. In case he can't afford to do that too much, but of course it gives him a bit of breathing room coming into Beggett's Chapel onto the Hangar Straight, just by eking out that little bit extra time as Jeff Carollo, again, Porsche not playing ball with the rear end, keeps it. Well, the walls are fairly far away there, but still very good job keeping it out of the way. The pendulum ring affecting of that sort of the engine being in the wrong place, as I like to say. Look at this lunge, though, engine in the fun place, right in the middle for this Brent Bravata. Two Ferraris battling out, prancing horses, prancing their way through the Vale chicane, wide around the outside through Club onto the Hamilton Straight. Brent Bravata takes that position, and all of a sudden the M4 decides, you know what, I'm going to have a go. Logan Vida. Logan Vida, well, he takes no second chances there. Goes down the inside of Abbey. Great move. All of a sudden you thought he was losing out coming into Brooklands. No, bided his time and went for it. But look at this, into Brooklands. Lydon Lee, you're not going to miss him, are you, in the Hayman Motorsports car? Right down the inside. Very close on the exit. Judges it to perfection. Both of those drivers giving each other only a few millimetres of space. It is just on this occasion, Lydon Lee coming out on top.
Looked like Tyler Campbell wanted to inspect the left rear arch of that Lamborghini there. He was very much involved in it, wasn't he? It almost looks like the Lamborghini's lost its bonnet all the time at the front with the way that it's been painted. It's like a solid black bonnet on the thing, so it looks like it's not actually there. Lydon Lee taking a much tighter line than Tyler through there. Tyler just losing a bit of momentum. It's not an easy place to follow the car in front, to be fair, as Matthew Green for Sim Party Racing is off. Not sure what's happened there. Big fan of that livery, to be fair. It's almost like a sort of privateer entry Lamborghini that you'd see in something like the British GT Championship with, you know, it's not got all the sponsors in the world on it. Just does the job and shows them the one team name that you need to. Just behind him on track now is Michael Fowler, who has a 1.3 second lead in the AM class. He's doing a smashing job so far. Starting to get away from Stephen Martinez again. There has been a crash with Tyler Campbell and Lydon Lee, though. Ed, talk us through this one.
Let's have a look there. Coming out of Stowe into the Vale chicane. Is it just going to be Tyler Campbell getting too late, too ambitious on the brakes?
Yeah.
Oh, he does, and tries to go around the outside to avoid contact, but just tags Lydon Lee around. Both of them losing out, but I think there is a bit of sportsmanship being shown by Tyler Campbell. Doesn't overtake, stays in behind Lydon Lee.
Yeah, fair play to Tyler there, but I think with how exuberant the pair of them were being before, it was almost inevitable that there was going to be contact. They're both pushing very hard indeed. Two drivers that are pushing very hard are Dave Meneno and Jonathan Ouellette. The two of them are absolutely on it at the moment. Brilliant performance. Jonathan Ouellette, car 2, P2. Dave Meneno, the man that started this race on pole position, won at Suzuka and continues to be at the forefront of the pace. They're using Silverstone as it should be used, but it's great to see two cars that, you know, only in layout are they similar, really. I mean, the Lamborghini's not properly Italian, is it? Let's face it, it's German. But still, great to see the Lamborghini Huracan and the Ferrari 488 both together on circuit, very well matched with these two brilliant drivers, one American, one Canadian, at the wheel of each. And they've got a gap of some 8.5 seconds over third place, James Pearce in the Twisted Racing Pro car.
Yeah, James Pearce, who's been having a bit of an upside-down, topsy-turvy race, but has been able to come back through into third place. He was right up there at this early phase of the race as well. Let's not forget, after the first couple of laps, he was really close behind the rear end of Jonathan Ouellette. But then one little mistake, one slowdown, dropped him back down the order. He's been able to claw back some advantage to the front two, but I think it will unfortunately be a third place he will have to settle for should nothing happen to the front pair. Then look at this in the Pro-Ams. Brent Ravata for Twisted Racing right in behind. Look at that. He was almost thinking of a lunge down the inside into Stowe. This is a very close fight in the Pro-Ams for what is second place.
Yeah, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth here. This is on board with Errol Urixoy at the back of it, and he can see this train of cars in front of him. That's Jay Steffi just in front, then Logan Vida in the other BMW, and then the other two Ferraris that Ed just mentioned there, Casey Metzger and Brent Bravata, get it out, Chaz. Dean Timms is some 6 seconds clear of these boys, though. Dean's having a really, really good run. He's doing exactly what he did at Suzuka, basically. He turns up as a British driver in a series for American drivers and absolutely dominates it. GG, Dean. But either way, he drove away from everybody at Suzuka, and he's starting to do that here, to be honest. It's really, really strong showing of pace. Andrew Rasmussen and Michael Kulaga are close together. I'd argue that Kulaga's going to get too close to the back of the Audi there, just a little bit late on the brakes, and we are seeing a lot of that tonight. A number of these drivers really throwing it down the inside, but often you do get that because, of course, these machines have ABS, and it can really straight line the car if you just push a little bit too hard on the brakes, can't it?
Yeah, but there's a lot of corners that sort of open up the windows to try and think about sending it down the inside. If you get a good run through Abbey and Farm, you can obviously chuck it up the inside into Village. So you can see, oh my word, the car is really struggling down. You can see how much lock he's putting in.
Michael.
That is a lot of lock to get it through Luffield.
God, I hope he doesn't want them tyres to last the race. They're not going to last another few laps if he carries on like that. Incredible amount of lock there. I've not seen that before.
Yeah,
very intriguing.
Strange to see that amount of lock.
Not to criticise, of course. Not to criticise too much. Sorry, Michael, but it's just that caught me off guard. That I think you could tell it caught both of us off guard.
Here's that Mark Sukakov on the Porsche brakes down the inside. Does he keep the rear end stable? No, he doesn't. Porsche got on the brakes. Bad out of the corners, though, it seems. The rear end, again, engine displacement means that the weight at the back is if it goes, it's going. You can't save it.
Once it's gone, it's gone. But, yeah, to be honest, I actually had a chat with an American commentator that I'm going to be working with on the weekend. Earlier, well, not even today, because it's nearly 2 a.m. now. But yesterday I had a chat with him, and he said that once he was very proud of himself when a Porsche spun, and he went, "Oh look, a Porsche going in the correct direction," which I think is a fair comment, to be fair. But we know that we all love the Porsches for the reason that they've got the engine so far back. Ryan Kaprowski has ended up putting the engine in the front of his Lamborghini as well, as he's going to just overdo it slightly onto the brakes. long slide, very painful slide, and that's one of the things with GT3 cars that you get, isn't it? It's not a sudden spin all of the time. You get this really painful, numbing, boring slide that's just really irritating to have as a driver.
Yeah, I should know. I drive the BMW. Painful, boring slides. Oh, that car's MO, if you get it wrong, it just goes and goes, and you're like, oh, come on. You look at it, you watch, are you done yet? Are you finished? No, all right, off we go. Then keep going, and eventually the car decides it wants to play ball, but by that time you're a few inches away from the wall, and you make a mess of your racing overalls or your jeans, whatever you're racing in your sim with.
Or your dressing gown.
Yeah. Or nothing at all if it's a hot day.
Well, yeah. Anyway, but I know what you mean, though. It's one of those things in these cars where they're very inviting cars to push the limit. When you get them right, they feel absolutely incredible, but you do get the odd time where the car just will break away and something bad will happen. We've got the two Lambos right together here. Leiden Lee letting the car run out wide again on the exit of Stowe. Certainly trying to put pressure on whoever he's racing against there. That's Koprowski going through, hopping over the curbs one way through the chicane. Leiden Lee looks for a cutback. Lovely stuff. Absolutely lovely stuff. Down the inside he goes. Just about leaves enough room. Good accommodation there by Koprowski on the left-hand side of the road. He's going to try and hang it around the outside in the 61 car. He is going to do just that. Carries the pace as well. What fantastic defending and great fight in this is Ed. Daniel Tenorio, though, he's got a great front row seat for this one.
He does. I think he wants to not just get front row seats, he wants to be in on the action. He wants to get up on stage and try to stake his claim for this fifth place. Leiden Lee getting through the loop just about, but look at how close they are, nose to tail. Two Lamborghinis absolutely going at it, hammer and tongs now down the Wellington straight into Brooklands. The inside line being afforded to Ryan, but not actually being taken. Leiden Lee able to sweep his car through into Brooklands, and Luffield hold on to that fifth place. You can see how wide he gets and then V's off the corner, gets that later apex onto the throttle nicely as there's a mistake there from Koprowski. Riddle Rocket Racing, unfortunately the 61 car a little bit too overzealous. It's so easily done though through Luffield, because the gravel trap, it lures you in with that little bit of sort of Astro on the exit. You think maybe I can push a little bit more, and then as soon as you overstep the margins, it's just a world of pain you're sent into. Thankfully, it doesn't spit him around and he only loses a couple of positions. You can see the cars just up the road for him to try and claw his way back up to. He's had the pace to do so, but that is definitely going to dent his confidence.
Yeah, definitely just pushed a little bit too hard, and as you said there, very rightly so, Ed, it's a very inviting corner, is Luffield. You always want to get on the power, when you're just trying to stick it to the apex, maintain the gap from yourself to the curb, and of course the apex. It sort of says, right, you've got the car turning in now put some throttle in, see what happens. And you always go, yeah, all right, no matter what you think, you just go, yeah, okay, I'll put some throttle in. And before you know it, that wall is really closing in on you, and you need to correct and maybe just catch a slide or just moderate the throttle. The car can sometimes step out with any adjustments you make, and before you know it, you're having a moment just like Ryan had there. Dave Meneno still leads this race. Amazing performance by him so far. We still have Dean Timms leading in the Pro-Am category at the moment, and then Michael Fowler still leading it in the AMs. He's got 1.1 seconds over Steven Martinez, and he's on the back of a few of these Pro and Pro-Am drivers now, so Michael showing that he's got the pace to stick with guys like this as well. So really, really impressive start for him, although he's actually jumping straight into the pits. Now we have been seeing, especially at Suzuka, pit stops around the sort of 25 minute to half hour mark. So Michael trying to get this done early, and maybe that's going to get him out of the traffic when he comes back out.
Yeah, it might do just that. Usually you want to try and pit as late as you can, but if you are in traffic, like Michael Fowler was just experiencing, traffic that is battling as well for position, doesn't have to get out of his way, of course, means maybe it is slightly smarter to pit earlier, get out in clear air, and then when all those around you make their pit stops, you should find yourself in a very good spot towards the end of the race. But we'll see how that battle shapes out towards the end. Keep your eyes on Michael Fowler for the remaining 5 or so minutes after we expect the first pit stops to be completed. I'm just in awe though of how close all of this action is, especially up towards the front of the pro classes. Jonathan Ouellette and David Meneno, they keep going at it.
They are indeed. The top two very close, although Ulet actually in the pits now in the Ferrari. Tries to go for the undercut. Dave Menino staying out. You can see on the left-hand side of your screen, thanks to Phantom02, by the way, who's just reminded me about having the car logos up there. I did that at Suzuka and was very proud of myself for remembering to do that. But there's 4 Ferraris leading the way in Pro-Am, 4 Ferraris leading the way in Am, and 3 Ferraris in the top 6 in the Pros. So it does really show you the quality of these Ferrari 488 GT3 Evos. Ferrari had to promise everybody that it was a different car to the original 488 GT3, one of the best looking race cars in the world, it has to be said. The 488 GT3, I mean the 488's a beautiful car anyway, but we've got a number of them on our screen now. This little train excites me quite a bit here because we've got Joseph Smith, Pro-Am, John Cooper just behind him, Pro, Matthew Green, Pro-Am, and then 2 Am drivers, Stephen Martinez and Justin Delano. Well, we did, but now they've gone into the pits, so oh well. But still, the fight goes on, and this is where things get interesting now, because not only will we have lap traffic and so on starting to become a bit of a nuisance for some of these drivers here, Ed, but cars that have pitted, cars that haven't pitted, they're all going to be mingling together at this point, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Different fuel loads, of course, in the cars means that different straight line speeds we'll be seeing as well, which could put a bit of excitement into the mix. But I'm very interested to see where all of those battling Pro-Ams will come out in relation to Michael Fowler. We saw them just up the road from him before he came into the pits. Has he been able to make up the time on this outlap, a crucial outlap for the Am class lead? Just coming down Hamilton Straight now into Albion Farm. Michael Fowler, I think, has he gotten ahead? I think he has just about gotten ahead of all of those battling Pro-Ams. You can see there in behind Matthew Green, car that was ahead of him before he came into the pit, so it seems for now to have worked in favour of Michael Fowler.
Yeah, lovely stuff. He's done a really good job of that, to be fair. I imagine he doesn't look as relaxed as he does in his picture right now, but still, he's doing a great job in this Ferrari. Number 54 Machine 4 Twisted Racing Team. Now let's have a look at the top of the pile, because Menino and Ulet are battling outright for this lead. Ulet is the only one, well, he's the highest car that's pitted so far, although a number of them are going to be coming out of the pits right now, but importantly, he's stuck behind Casey Metzger and Brent Bravata, so this might be slowing him down, whereas Dave Menino, Dave is not actually, sorry, I thought Dave had just come out of the pits, I apologise, I got very excited for a second there, because I thought, why is David half a minute ahead? But look at this though, now Jonathan Ulet, he knows he's got to get on with this, he can't mess about, and Brent Bravata is not letting him have it. This is for overall position, doesn't really matter in the championship, it's all about class positions when it comes to your points, but still, Jonathan Ulet's having to work to get past one of his stable mates here in the form of Brent Bravata, and then he's got Casey Metzger as well, another one of the stable mates at Twisted Racing. Yeah,
and the thing is, these two are battling for Pro-Am class lead, so that's why I think it was Brent Bravata was a little bit reluctant to let Jonathan Ulet get through, get up ahead. These are all Twisted Motorsports drivers. Don't get it twisted, these aren't trying to work together, they are really battling for it, but Jonathan Ulet able to get through now. I think the message has finally been relayed.
Yeah.
Maybe with a few choice words being used from Jonathan, because he was getting held up quite a lot there. We see Dave Menino now coming into the pits. So this could be very intriguing just to see how the pit strategy works out.
So Brent Bravata still chasing Casey Metzger now. Those two got a bit closer together for a second there, but all of a sudden Brent just had a lot of understeer as he went through Maggots and Beckett's. And again, I mean, look at the amount of Ferraris on the left-hand side of your screen. Really is the dominant car in this race so far. Daniel Tenorio, he's just come into the pits as well. So too has Tyler Campbell. Those two also in Ferraris. Dave Menino in the Lamborghini is probably a good 10 seconds away from getting going down the straight. I'd give it about oh, actually, no. He's at a 14-second pit stop. Jonathan Ulet's pit stop was 20.6 seconds. And look at the difference. Wow. Dave Menino, a very, very short pit stop in comparison there. 6 seconds quicker.
So this could be strategy. Dave Menino having a shorter middle stint.
Mm.
And then obviously there's just one more pit stop expected for all of these drivers here. Could be very interesting to see what happens when the fuel is taken right up until the end of this race.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting that he's gone to do that. I'm quite intrigued to see how that plays out over the course of the final parts of this race. But still, we've got a lot going on at the minute. Just trying to see what the situation is in the AMs, because we've got a few pitting, but the timing has just sort of changed around as a lot of them have been in the pits and some haven't. Michael Fowler is coming around the final corner now, as you see here.
Florera is on pit exit.
Yeah.
Florera, I think, maybe he's a little bit too far back to get this, but it could be a race between the pair of them. Michael Fowler sweeping his way around the outside. He's been able to make the strategy work. You can see him now retaining his AM class lead. It's Martinez back up into second place. And then third, you can see Delano just sweeping his way around the outside. That was close between Delano and Florera there.
It was and still is, to be fair. Florera could get a good exit here to go down the back straight, but no, doesn't look like he's able to get the power down as early. I don't expect these guys to be taking tyres, not at this point anyway, in the race. Leiden Lee, by the way, has had some sort of issue. He has gone way, way down the order and is currently classified in 34th position. So we need to try and have a look at what's happened there. He was in the pits for 0.4 of a second. It does say, here we go. This will be it, Ed. So he's chasing down Ferrari in front. And, something very sudden happened there. Either his dinner's ready or something's happened technically, but he was very, very quickly out of that car. So whatever it is, we do hope that Mr. Lee is all right and that there is no sort of negative situation surrounding that. But
in that situation, you have to hope that it's a technical issue or something. Don't you? That was a very, very strange moment for Leiden Lee, who was, let's face it, one of the big sort of, I think, attractors of incidents and action for this first half hour, you have to say. Definitely in the thick of it. But in the thick of the action now, I think it's Daniel Tenorio's time in the spotlight, closing the gap down to Ryan Kowalski. Riddle Rocket Racing up into 5th place. Dean Timms, Pro-Am driver, mixing it with the pros. He can see a 5th position overall on the cards now.
Yeah, great race by Dean Timms, and to be fair, Brent Bravata as well. 10 places gained from where he started. 18th on the grid, up to 8th place. Really good for him. Wilson Brewer has gained 17 spots, but he's one of the pro drivers. Wasn't at Suzuka, so didn't qualify, which meant he started at the back of the grid. So really, those 17 places, while they are on merit, they don't quite count as much as Brent Bravata, who's had to go through other Pro-Am drivers and drivers in his class. Wilson's having to go through just the Am class and then the Pro-Am class. So hats off to Brent. He's second in his class, 3.2 seconds off Dean Timms. But we need to look at this, because two twisted racing cars that are right together are James Pearce and Harry Wills. Neither of them had the easiest of times at Suzuka. Harry Wills actually led most of the race until he had a bit of a battle with James. I believe it was James, or no, it was Dave Menino, apologies. But Harry, just coming into Spoon Curve, clipped the grass. Suddenly the car was spat the other way, and he had a bit of a technical issue and a blink, and the car was all over the place, and it spat him into the wall hard with only a couple of laps left to go. So Harry is going to be hoping that he can make something more of this race, and he's doing it pretty well at the moment. In 4th place, 18 seconds off the lead. Now, I'm not sure if it's just me, Ed, but the second set of lights on that Audi seem to be yellow.
Yeah, I think that's a new thing.
I've never seen that
because I don't
before.
remember that being a thing. That must be new. I was going to touch on it in the first sort of in the warm-up while we were just running through all the different liveries, but I wasn't entirely sure if it was just a thing on my end or a graphical thing or whatever. But yeah, there are some additional lights now. I don't know if they were there before. At least you notice them more now because they're bright yellow.
Yeah, I think they were there before, but I'll have to check back on previous screenshots, I think, of that, because they certainly weren't yellow. I know that much for free. I'm usually quite attentive with stuff like that. But
here we come into an area that I wanted to actually touch on here is coming when you're following a car ahead, coming into this Beckett section. You want to keep nice and tight through here. Try and keep tight through into Beckett's, really close on the inside, and then you can power out nicely, which Harry Wills has done a very good job of doing just that. But it's still compromised his line out because of the dirty air, and that's so tricky to do, is following a car through that section. If you can get it right, it sets you up brilliantly for that hanger straight into Stowe. But especially when you have a car that, let's say, is fairly loose at the rear end, in Harry Wills' case, you can't really push the limits as much as you can in, say, something like a BMW, where you can really keep it tight all the way until you get to Beckett's and Chapel, when you can start to press a little bit harder to get that best exit possible.
I knew that was going to somehow come around to how good the BMW was. But either way, you are correct, mate. Very, very correct. We've had, unfortunately, an issue for our lone Mercedes out there. Jason Bridges going into turn 2 hard on the brakes. It's just going to snap around on him on the downshift. Long slide, not helped by the curb. Gets on the brakes just to try and save it. But I'm afraid a bit of a problem there for the big, beefy Mercedes. Drew Neubauer has also, Neubauer, I should say, has had an issue. He's already had an issue of some sort there in that BMW. And I believe that is going to be race over for him if that thing carries on behaving like that. Certainly isn't going as well as it looks. And Jason Bridges had another issue just after that. Again, same thing, do you reckon?
Could be. Let's have a look. Into the corner. Rear end. Oh, he does well to sort of recover it. Only loses maybe about a second or so. This is a very slow speed section of the circuit. Does he just... Yeah. Too aggressive into the corner. Rear end stepping out as well to recover it, though. Slows the speed down. And now here we go. Don't get it twisted. These two drivers are battling very hard and fair as well. Look at this down the inside.
No.
Oh, there's contact, and they both spin. They're both off. What on earth has happened there? I was trying to resist the attempt to make another twisted pun, but twisted themselves into knots there. It seems. Wills.
Well,
and Tenorio there.
Oh, the boys. I'm confused by that. I think really, it looks to me like Harry just ran wide. I mean, this was earlier than that actually. This was coming on to the old start-finish straight, and then that was just as it happened. So we need to maybe go the corner before that. Yeah, this is the only chance we've got really to look at that beforehand. But great fighting. I'm not sure what flashing your headlights is going to do sideways, Harry. I'm not going to lie to you, but I feel that, you know, enough room was left. I just think Harry ran a little bit wider than he thought. Maybe just carried a bit too much speed. That's feisty through there, through Copse. So this is where we picked them up. We'll go back to the Blimpy boy again, so you can see how it went. We'll go into a slow-mo as well, so we can analyse this live marshalling live on air. But look at that. Tenorio is all over the curb, but I think the car just really bites as he turns right there. Harry is on the curb, to be fair. Looking back at it, I'm not sure Tenorio's left the room.
No, Tenorio did a really good job in the early phase of that corner. You can see he got really over the curb on the run into Maggots, the left-hander, which is what you're supposed to do. And actually, the proper racing line is to do that because it shallows out the run through into Beckett very nicely. Allows you to carry plenty of speed while keeping it tight, which is crucial to get that section done nicely and correctly. But you can see he just drifted a bit too much over onto the right. There was a car occupying that spot, and unfortunately, that's put both of them in, well, a little bit of grief. Harry Wills getting away with it a little bit. You can see there he's still up into third place, but that has really, really done a number on James Pearce's race.
Indeed, and I believe I may have detected a Murrayism partway through that, where you said they both spin, they're both off. I think that's a famous Murray line. I'm not sure if he did that on purpose or not, but
I think I've just been absorbing it via osmosis. He's got a very, very lovely book over Christmas, Murray Walker's amazing autobiography. It was definitely one of my favourite Christmas gifts, even if it wasn't the biggest one, the most flashy. It was still a very nice, thoughtful gift, and I must have just been brought in via osmosis, just reading through all of his amazing tales and stories and Murrayisms.
Oh yeah, it's the lifeblood of what we do, isn't it? Really, let's face it. We've got Daniel Tenorio still chasing down this Lamborghini now of Ryan Koprowski, who also had his own issues earlier on, just a few tenths between them. I'm afraid we've had another issue for one of the BMWs here. Tom Corner in the Team Premac car has come to some grief into Brooklands. Don't often see that from the BM. Good awareness as well to get the car out of the way straight away. Gary Brown has had his own moment in the Porsche, needs to sort his numbers out on the car. This is the FTR car, just one way then the other. Again, that pendulum effect. Rear engine Porsche. It's not a friendly car when it comes to stuff like that. Tenorio has got past Koprowski while we've been looking away. That's absolutely typical of me. But it says Koprowski went off the circuit for about a second, so I think maybe he's just ran wide and gave the position up. Now, Justin Delano is third in the AM class at the moment. He's got Daniel Florea about a second behind him. Oh, Gary Brown's off again in the Porsche. So another absolute nightmare. Florea a second behind Delano, and then Joseph Smith, then Matthew Green. Those two Pro-Ams just behind this. But Stephen Martinez is only just ahead of Delano in second place. So this AM battle's still going on here. This is great, great stuff. And to be fair, I expected this field to spread out a little bit more than this, and it's stayed very, very close together.
Yeah, like we said, Silverstone GT3s, they shouldn't disappoint, and they're certainly not at the moment. Stephen Martinez under a huge amount of pressure from both Delano and Florea. You can see just lingering in the background, going down to Wellington straight into Brooklands and Luffield. Another section where you can really get it done nicely if you take a few liberties on the inside. It lets you do so coming into Brooklands, and then, like we're seeing, veering off this Luffield section, getting on the power as early as you dare, using all of the runoff. No more though, because that gravel lures you in to try and make any sorts of missteps, mistakes. You're going to get spat off into the wall. Then, oh, what a corner this is. Cops absolutely sling it through. Both these drivers, you can see how close they are. It's going to be down to Delano if he can try and get the better of this Beckett's Chapel section. Very nice through Maggots in towards Beckett's again, keeping a very good line. You can see keeps it tighter through the final right hander, gets on the power nice and early through the left of Chapel onto the hanger straight. He's able to close in. You can see that gap getting smaller and smaller, but not small enough for him to make a move into Stowe.
No, not quite anything doing just yet for Justin Delano on the back of Stephen Martinez, but a great chase all the same. You can see he's not pushing too hard at the minute. He's not diving down the inside everywhere. He's just following him, just trying to get an idea of where he's quicker, where he's got a pace difference, and there's certainly a pace difference there. Puts his nose down the inside into the final corner, plays it safe, but hits the curb a bit hard. He's going to lose a bit of ground there, and look out for Daniel Florea. He's going to be around here somewhere. Where is he? There is he. As they go down the start-finish straight once again. But actually gains a bit more time back there, does Delano, but still, Martinez now in the clear for a couple more seconds. Now, you mentioned Copse being a hell of a corner a moment ago as Daniel Tenorio just comes out of it. I've actually got a story about Copse when I was commentating just where these guys have gone past now at the Beckett's box. You may even see it on the left of the shot. No. I was commentating down at Beckett's with the MSA Superkart Championships. Now, if you've never seen Superkarts before, trust me, they are the most bonkers people in motorsport. They have 110 horsepower Division 1 supercarts that'll do over 150 miles an hour. Yes, in a cart. It's ridiculous. However, I was commentating on them in the rain, and I was told that during the 1997 Formula 1 Grand Prix weekend at Silverstone, one of the supercarts was clocked going faster round Copse, yes, in a cart, than Jacques Villeneuve did in his very own Williams F1 car. That's how fast supercarts are and how bonkers you've got to be to push it flat through Copse.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was a time in, I can't remember where it was now, but there was a time where you could actually go faster in a supercart around race circuits than you could than Formula 1 cars of the day. It was absolutely insane. Sorry, go on.
I think the actual, on the Silverstone national layout that we have currently, I think the outright lap record is held by a Division 1 supercart. That's how fast they are.
I mean, they are absolutely nuts. If ever you get a chance to do so, I highly recommend going to supercarts at Cadwell Park.
Oh my god, yeah.
It is amazing. I went there over the weekend one time to watch the supercarts. It was a horrible wet and windy day and night and morning and afternoon. But I tell you what,
Whoa.
it was absolutely amazing. We see a little bit of dramas there from Donald Malcolm rejoining the circuit. But yeah, those supercars around Cadwell Park in the wet, you need to have different gravy to do that stuff, honestly.
Oh, they are made of something different. Donald Malcolm's had another moment here through Cops. Look, he just tries to adjust it on the brakes, and it just goes around. I want to have a quick look on board with Travis Kepler, who was just coming down the straight, minding his own business in the Team Pramac car, maybe with a bit of music on, maybe with his indicators completely turned off because it's BMW, and suddenly, whoa, way up the lad, flipping heck, son. Bit of a scary moment there, but luckily Silverstone, a very wide and quite open circuit, so Travis got lots of time to see him. Now, Dave Menino is in the pits a lot earlier than Jonathan Ouellette this time, and that, of course, is because his pit stop before was a lot shorter. This will be the last one of the race, I think.
Very early indeed. Now, is he going to have enough fuel to last up until the end of the race? That's going to need, what, about 28, 27 minutes worth of fuel, maybe a little bit more depending on how long it is. So essentially he's going to need half an hour's worth of fuel on board, and I don't think anyone was actually able to make their first stint last for 30 minutes. So this is going to have to be a mammoth job by Menino to get this to last up until the end.
And even now he's still had a shorter pit stop than Jonathan Ouellette had last time. His first stop was about 14 seconds. This second one was 20.1. That's half a second less than Jonathan Ouellette. Yes, half a second's not a massive amount when it comes to pit stops, but still, the fact that it is still shorter means that he's not taken a hell of a lot of fuel, but he's only taken as much as he can.
Doing is that he's going to try and make this on maybe 3 stops instead of 2.
I'm intrigued to see whether he can make that work, because in the pits, even with what he's just done there, you're in the pits for 51 seconds. It's a long, long pit lane at Silverstone, isn't it?
But you do cut off, obviously, the Vale chicane. It is a lot. I think it is a pit lane where you don't lose as much time as, let's say, other circuits. Maybe even something like Road America, compared to here. You do lose a little bit less time here at Silverstone.
Very, very good point.
That could be the ace up his sleeve for Dave Menino to try and get this to work. I mean, he has the pace to try and make a conventional strategy work, but you can see from his pace, he's thinking that maybe it's time for an alternative strategy.
Wilson Brewer just having a moment there in the Lamborghini, just throwing it in a little bit too hard into the second corner. This battle's still going on though, Tenorio and Koprowski. Koprowski just tucked in the slipstream now. How evil does that Lamborghini look? It's absolutely phenomenal. Wonderful looking car, great looking supercar as well on the road, but still these two very close together. So Menino, the highest placed driver, and there's only 2 or 3 drivers that have actually done 2 stops now. Andrew Rasmussen, one of them. The other is Eric Kulaga in the number 66 Vulture Motorsports car. I've not really seen anything of Eric in this race, unfortunately, and that's a big shame because that's a very, very good looking car. I always like a teal sort of livery, like a turquoisey colour. Eric very much on his own at the moment with 14 seconds to the car behind, and about, well, a good 14 seconds to the car in front actually as well. So he's certainly in a bit of no man's land at the minute, and it's not always a very enjoyable race when you're like that, is it? Because you're pushing like mad, you're trying to go as quickly as possible, and for a good hour or so you might not see another car.
Yeah, but when you're at this track in these cars, I wouldn't mind that, to be fair. I'd love, sometimes when I'm bored, I'd come on this and just hot lap. GT3s, Silverstone, GP layout. So fun. There's so many different corners to try and get right. Of course, you've got the amazing Maggots Beckett's Chapel section as well. Then you've got Stowe, Cops. You've got the tight, twisty section of Village in the Loop before coming into Brooklands and Luffield. There aren't really many corner complexes like Brooklands and Luffield that come at you so quickly. You need to get the car sent in and then suddenly settle very nicely for Luffield. It's a brilliant circuit, and I'm trying to keep my British bias very deep down, but I've got to say it's probably one of the best racing circuits in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because it's not always a track that springs to mind as one of my favourites. I find the flat nature of Silverstone a little bit dull sometimes. I mean, as a spectator, I don't believe it's really that good a circuit. I think it's just too big to be a spectator. You know, if you want to go down here to the Hanger Straight and go to the bottom at Stowe, you have to go outside of the circuit and all the way around it. And to go back in the paddock, you have to go to the complete opposite end and then inside the paddock from the top part near the start-finish straight, the old start-finish straight anyway. So logistically it can be a pain, but I totally agree. For racing, it is absolutely amazing. There is some incredible fighting that you can have here.
You raised a good point about that being too big. I mean, what about Spa? That's a huge track, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so, but, iconic in its own way as well, just like Silverstone. Oh, hello. Now, that's not going to go down well. That's Casey Metzger, Twisted Racing Pro-Am driver, hitting the back of Pro driver Tyler Campbell. Tyler's not going to take that lightly, and he's run off the road slightly in a bit of frustration there, but Casey's got his own fight going on here, because Jay Steffi's closing in. He's third in class at the moment in the Q3 SimSport car. That's because Dean Timms is actually in the pits. He was fourth just before that. But still, Jay is starting to put a bit of pressure on Casey, and Casey does not want to linger around if Tyler is going to be slower than him. Like we said before, just because they're in different classes doesn't mean they have to jump out of the way of each other. If you've got the pace, you may as well chuck one up the inside, because at the end of the day, it's your own race that you're hindering if you just wait.
You're absolutely, and of course, with this being, though, the first race of the season, is it wise to get mixed up in these fights? Is it maybe smarter? Is it maybe better to hang back and think about maybe the long game, maybe other things later on in the season? Would you regret if you went for a move and it didn't work out, and then you see at the end of the season you're on a really close fight, you need maybe 1 or 2 points to see the position, think, oh, maybe if I was a little bit more sensible in Silverstone and bagged the points when I had the chance to, I could have been in a more comfortable spot. You never know. So of course, this early stage of the season, it's good just to get a nice reasonable start and then think about all of the permutations later on, and then you can start to really go for it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to just sort of manage the race early on and see where you are, because a lot of racing like this, when it comes down to pit stops as well, it's all about adapting. You can have a strategy planned out when you're going to pit, how much fuel you're going to take, this, that and the other, but at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen to you or your car early on in the race. You have to have a backup plan. You have to be able to develop your plan as the race goes on, and that's one of the difficult things about sim racing, because while these drivers are in teams and so on, they work with a lot of other drivers in their teams, you have to do it all yourself. You manage your own race. You're the master of your own fate in most motorsport, but even more so in sim racing, because you've not got a team sat on a pit wall guiding you through every single corner. It's all about you, and you manage your pit stops, you manage this, that and the other, and you get on with it from there. So in some ways, you have a lot more to manage and think about while the race goes on. That's why fuel strategies, even tyre strategies in even longer races are so interesting. Now, it's occurred to me, Ed, I mentioned before the maybe accidental Murrayism, saying they both spin, they're both out. It was the very famous 1992 British Touring Car Championship deciding move where Steve Soper launched his car, there's no other word for it, at John Cleland. They both made contact. Murray said that he attacks down the inside, and then they both spin, they're both out. It just, for some reason, I said the phrase to myself over and over because I was infuriated at myself for not remembering it straight away, and all I could see was John Cleland's Cavalier pirouetting against a tyre wall. So there we go. I brought that up from the memory banks of Draycott.
Murray and BTCC. In fact, to be fair, John Cleland and BTCC is brilliant. There's nothing more iconic than I'm going for first, says John Cleland. There's something so brilliant about just a lot of Murray in terms of British touring cars, but in terms of a lot of what he did. I mean, there's a mural, isn't there, actually, I think. Oh, where is it? It's Silverstone.
At Silverstone. It's just underneath
Silverstone.
Underneath the commentary boxes at Woodcote. I actually pulled up there to commentate about a week or so after it had been done, and I tell you what, I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, Ed and I were unfortunate enough to be live on air when we heard of Murray's passing, unfortunately, a few hours into a 6-hour broadcast, and we had to sort of take it on the chin at the time and continue through what was a very difficult and dark day to be a commentator. But if we thought that was a tearjerker at the time, Ed, I tell you what, turning up and only noticing that was there when I got out of the car was pretty unreal, I must admit. But yeah, it was a massive loss, and it still is to have lost Murray. But we've got to that point now where we sort of just remember him in enjoyment rather than in sadness at losing him, I think.
Absolutely, and we get to enjoy what he enjoyed, and that's motor racing, isn't it? We've got
Yeah.
some brilliant action here. Look at this. Look at these two absolutely duking it out into Stowe. Daniel Florea getting the better of Martinez. Martinez thinks, right, you're going to go through. I'm going to go into the pits.
Yeah,
Stop this. I'm going. I'm not going home, but I'm definitely. I'm going to the pits, getting some fresh fuel on board, and see if that'll put him in better stead towards the end of the race. But Florea now with that has been promoted into the lead of the AM class.
Yeah, indeed, Florea will be happy about that for now. But, there's a car off the road there. For some reason, I've not got it showing up on who that was for now. Gary Brown, actually. Gary Brown's had an issue, and he has been off the road and stayed off the road for a few seconds. This is the FTR Esports Porsche that is through to turn 1. Just touches the curb, upsets the rear end, and wow, that's a long old spin to go around there. He's going to just do a little bit of a J-turn and get that thing back on track. But again, it just seems like one of those places it's a real challenge for the Porsche. Now, Jonathan Ouellette, he's in the pit lane. Last pit stop was 20.6 seconds. Now, we're literally going to sit on board and watch this real time here because we need to keep an eye out for where Dave Menino comes through. Harry Wills is on his way, by the way.
Just seeing that. I think Ouellette has really got the fuel down to the last little bits because that car seemed to be coughing, almost juttering, before he brought it to a stop. So I think Jonathan Ouellette was really extending this stint as long as he can. He's going to get past by Menino and Koprowski and as
Tenorio.
well Tenorio. But
wow,
I think all of these drivers are still expected to pit, aren't they, Chaz? So
yes, well, at least Tenorio and Koprowski are, but Menino, we're not sure. It was actually a 17-second pit stop for Jonathan Ouellette, but still, the gap between the two of them is 13 seconds right now. Menino absolutely flying, in fairness. Did a 2:01.0 last time, but Jonathan Ouellette's in-lap was almost his fastest lap of the race, a 1:59.6. He is the only driver to have gone under 2 minutes with their fastest lap, I believe. Actually, no, apologies. Harry Wills has also done it. Jay Steffi actually did it on the last lap in his Ferrari, but I think that's actually when you come into the pits, to be fair, because it's almost a second quicker, isn't it? So, yeah, I think Harry Wills actually is probably on merit, but the other two, I think it's when they've pitted, because, yeah, actually looking at it, it was when Jay Steffi pitted, because it cuts a lot of the circuit before you cross the line.
Yeah, so lap times might not be representative in terms of what the fast lap times are, but looking at previous lap times, you can definitely see pace on show, and Dave Menino, give him credit, is the fastest driver on the circuit as it stands. Doing a 2-minute 1:0 last time by as Harry Wills wheels off, comes down into the pits. Gets onto the limiter. Twisted Racing Audi driver that was in a bit of a fracas with his teammate coming into Maggots and Beckett's. You can still see the podium on the cards. Loses up to Dave Menino, but Ryan Koprowski and Daniel Tenorio into the pits in behind. So Jonathan Ouellette will see all of these three in the pits stopped. He will blitz on by, and now only have Dave Menino up ahead of him, separating him from the top step of the podium. But the real question is, does Dave Menino need to stop for fuel, or has he done enough, and is he able to save enough for these, well, final 15 minutes now?
Yeah, indeed. I can't believe how quickly this race has gone by. 1 hour certainly does fly. It certainly did at Suzuka as well. Closest two cars on track are these pair, Joseph Smith and Michael Kalaga. BMW /Lexus taking on Ferrari. Michael Kalaga just going a little bit wider there through Copse up towards Maggots and Beckett's. Joseph gets the better run of the two, but you can hear him lifting off, just taking it nice and easy. Easy for me to say easy, isn't it? Certainly focusing on his own lines there. Delano dropping down the order in AM because he is in the pit lane. Daniel Florea goes past him. Fowler actually quite a way down, you know, in the AMs, although Plaisance just in front of him hasn't pitted yet either. Daniel Florea hasn't either, so there you go, it makes perfect sense. Shut up, Chaz. But anyway, Joseph Smith, 12th in his class at the minute, Single Cow is a good few seconds back from this, but you can see a bit of defensive driving here for Michael Kulaga. He's a lot further over to the inside of the corner than he really needs to be. He doesn't need to defend, I don't think, from that far back. Maybe he's just making sure that he can cover the line off in case Kulaga gets a good run. But wow, what a slide that was. Look at the golden glow here at Silverstone as well. Beautiful scenes.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, Joseph Smith with the golden wheels in the golden glow of Silverstone. Just see rear end start to step out. The tyres well past their best here, even though the track temperature is a little bit cooler with it being an evening race. Lap times aren't really getting any faster on account of wear being accrued onto these tyres. I was going to say Pirellis, but I don't know if we're actually running Pirellis. I think they are.
Well, it's interesting. I think we noticed, didn't we, together, that sometimes these Porsches, depending on the livery that you run, the Porsche GT3R and the GT3 Cup car can sometimes run Pirellis or Michelins, and that does get reflected by a visual aspect of the tyre writing on the side. I'm pretty sure that all of these cars do run Pirellis. Not that it makes a difference really in a virtual world, but still, we can always pretend. Then again, we
got
can
to check it off for the commentary bingo, aren't you? Talking about all the different tyres. The amount of times I'm hearing about the Goodyear tyres when I'm watching British touring cars.
Staying on brand. Now we're just got to wait for one of these Pirellis to randomly explode at Silverstone, and then we'll be absolutely on the money, won't we? But either way, Daniel Tenorio is still right with Koprowski. These two have been glued at the hip so far. We might start having to look at venues next. I might have to get a hat as well, to be fair, Ed, because these two may as well just tie the knot now. Right together, Ferrari and Lamborghini. But Meneno, importantly, at the top of this field, although I'm going to shut up because Tenorio thinks, right, watch this, Chaz, I'm going to send it down the inside for you, give me something to look at. Nearly, well, about 12 minutes from the end of this race now, and Tenorio is really piling on this pressure, isn't he? Tenacious Tenorio as he goes into cops.
Oh, love that.
That was rubbish, don't lie. Anyway, I mean, to be fair, any excuse to look at that Lamborghini, we'll stay on board with Daniel for a second. You
can see the different lines being taken. Tenorio a little bit. I think he took a very wide line into Nuggets, which kind of hampered him towards the end. It's amazing how much you can do when you start really affect drive out of the corner. So it's about being a little bit more shallow on the run in, keeping it tight, and then obviously a few liberties with track limits here and there. If you get it done absolutely perfectly, you'll have a great run. I mean, he's close enough through Stoke to maybe think about sending a lunge. You brake at the 100-metre board for the Vale chicane. Get the car nice and balanced on throttle. Picking a moment to go full throttle through Club Corner. We come out onto the Hamilton Straight. Only 11 minutes to go here. 11 minutes of battling and action, you'll have to say, between Koprowski and Tenorio.
Must say as well, by the way, Dean Timms, what a fantastic drive he's had as well. The number 46 machine, Twisted Racing Team. He dominated at Suzuka, and he is dominating here as well at Silverstone. He's been brilliant in that Ferrari. He may not have the spec map on, but that is all completely academic as this race goes. Joseph Smith, I'm afraid, has had an issue not long ago. As the back end of the BMW goes out, I think it's going to go again here because he's overheated those tyres and they are not doing too well. And yeah, that's a long old slide to go around there. They'll be like 50 pence pieces now. Or to Americans, that's, well, what would that be? 50 cents. But their coins are round though.
Yeah, they're all round. Yeah, they're not exciting like ours.
Yeah,
that's the one thing we can be proud of, is our exciting coins.
Yeah, our dangerous pointy coins. But yeah,
look at the dangerous pointiness though of that Lamborghini. You love to see it, don't you? The angles, the shapes. Looks really aggressive coming into cops.
Oh yeah, there was no part of that car was designed using a compass. It was all just a ruler. It was just, honestly, they were like, 90 degrees? Nah, never heard of it. 45 degree angles, more than that. Let's do nearly 270 degrees. Look at those headlights. Absolutely beautiful machine. And to be fair, one of the worst kept secrets in sim racing when that car came out. iRacing shared a picture of the rear window and everybody knew exactly what it was straight away. But iRacing tried to play the game, and fair play to them. Either way, I'm very grateful to have it here on the sim, and iRacing continuing to push more European content and GT content as well as just stuff that turns left. which, to be fair, has made a lot of our broadcasts a lot more enjoyable as well, Ed, because it's stuff that's a little bit more relatable over this side of the pond, isn't it?
Well, you said about the rear. Took a picture of the rear window. What rear window? There isn't one.
Well, that's very true.
You can't see it at all.
That's a very, very good point, mate. Very, very good. Let's call it the engine cover.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll
The
go with
engine cover at the back of the Lamborghini. As we see, up in front, this time in the AM class, Michael Fowler.
He's
definitely not. Sorry, go on.
No, you do your pun first.
No.
I was going to say he's not fallen foul of anything, has he? I'm sorry.
We're on the same wavelength. I can't be upset with that pun because that was pretty much exactly the same thing I was going to go for.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The stars and stripes are certainly being waved here by Casey Metzger, though. I keep looking back at this, and the time goes up to about half a second and then back down to like a tenth of a second at the end of a straight here. Jay Steffi in the Q3 Simsport. He's hoping it's going to be Q3 and P3 by the end of the race, but he's not quite there yet. He's just looking down the inside of Casey Metzger, but Casey's been holding true as this race has gone on. Of course, he led the class early on in this race, but had a couple of moments. He's always had a bit of lively racing on the channel, to be fair, as Casey Metzger. He races in the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup of the United States as well. I've been commentating on him and a number of the other drivers in this series on that one. And it's great to see that sort of commitment from these drivers, isn't it, to one league organiser like that. More than one series for the same league organiser. That's a lot of practice time and a lot of effort, especially with the calibre of drivers we have in this series.
Yeah, it really is. You see, Casey, look at that. He's really taking a lot of liberties on track limits there, really over the inside. You're able to do that. And that sets him up brilliantly for the exit. You can see how much he's been able to pull out. Now the gap, 7/10 of a second. That just shows what a good run through Magus Beckett's does to your lap time, to the gap from the cars you're battling. He's going to be far away safe into Stowe. And now there isn't much time to go in this race.
No, there really isn't. There really isn't. It's certainly rocketed past as Koprowski tries to defend from Tenacious Tenorio, as we called him before, in 5th position. But in terms of the top 3, by the way, we have to give a shout to Harry Wills, who's been solid throughout this one. Jonathan Ouellette as well. I mean, he may be some 14 seconds off the lead right now, but he's been one of my real stars of this race. His pace has been so consistent. But the man on a mission right now is Dave Meneno. He didn't qualify fastest at Suzuka. I think he started something like 6th or even 7th on the grid, maybe even 5th actually. I think it was something about car 5, P5. But he just survived. He just survived Suzuka where he needed to and absolutely nailed the strategy and just dominated the last few minutes of that race because nobody could touch him once he got into his stride. And right now, he's certainly in a stride and a half. Now we're looking here at Jeremy Littleton. Now I'm pretty sure that Jeremy, who we haven't seen much of in that Martini Ferrari this race, he is definitely in the Pro-Am class, as you can see by the windscreen banner there. He's going to be in no class in a minute if he moves over to the right, because that BMW is going to put him up the bridge. But either way, they get away with it just for now. But we will have Jeremy's class sorted out for the next one. We promise you guys. But this happens sometimes. There's a lot of classes and driver classifications to sort out, so please do.
Yeah. First round teething problems.
Yeah, it's not like we had a media day to sort it out a week ago, Chaz. But that's absolutely fine. It's not my fault. Anyway, Matthew Plaisance, another driver we've not seen too much of. I like the bandana. Is 4th place in class. The 4th of 5 Ferraris leading that class. In the Pro-Ams, it's Urexoy that is just changing the situation there, because there's only 4 Ferraris in front of him. I say only. But in the Pro class, we only have 2 Ferraris in the top 5.
I was going to say, I haven't seen much of Errol Urexoy either. A driver that's definitely flown under the radar, but I have to say, that twisted livery does look very nice on the BMW. Even you've got a bit, even with the lipstick around the front end, the front air intake. Your Chaz isn't sold.
It's like it's had a nosebleed.
I like it. Chaz thinks it's a Lexus.
The back of it's a Lexus. The back, look at it. Oh, Meneno's in. Or is he out? Where's he gone? No.
He's in, out.
Shake it all about, Dave. Oh, no. I can't take the mick out of that. That's not funny.
What
Dave Meneno has completely gone. Let's just go back a little bit further. So here he is. leading the way. No cars really around him. He's got a bit of traffic just behind, and he's suddenly just going to disappear in a moment or so. I'm pretty sure. Must be just an instant connection failure, because it doesn't look like he's having an incident or any sort of problem around the final corner, across the line to start what would have been his 35th lap of the race. It could be a complete sim crash. It could be an issue with his PC.
I'm having a look because I have the ability to go into iRacing's actual thing and see all the information, like people manually disconnecting or throughput falling through. I've not seen anything come through from Dave Menino just yet. I'm keeping my eyes on it, but this is huge.
Now, apologies.
And it's just confirmed. He's just disconnected. Incoming packet lost. Dave Menino out of this race. Confirmation then that the race lead has been handed over in the final 3 minutes to the Canadian Jonathan Ouellette.
I cannot believe it. After that's got to be a commentator's curse. I owe Dave a beer, but
you owe him more than a beer. Oh my god, that is heartbreaking.
Absolutely devastating for Dave Menino. But at the end of the day, I always say this, and I'm going to say it again. Ed's sick of this, but when this sort of thing happens, we attribute it to when a mechanical failure or a random failure with the car would occur. Of course, they're not simulated in iRacing. It would be seen as unfair, I imagine, by a lot of people. But when these technical issues happen with the technology that we use to do this sort of racing, it is attributed as a sort of mechanical failure. And that's unfortunately what Dave's had here. Just because you're in first place does not mean you are immune from that sort of problem, and this is your current race leader. It does mean that Daniel Tenorio has actually made it onto the podium now as well. So he's going to be very, very pleased with that. A little bit further back, though, we've got Jeremy Littleton, Logan Vider and Andrew Rasmussen very close together. It's Ferrari, BMW and Audi. Sounds like one of the most self-conscious car meets in the world. But either way, self-confident, I should say. But Andrew Rasmussen, let's just go on board with the Audi, why not? It's always good to go on board when you've got a 5.2 litre V10 strapped to your shoulders. But right now, he's actually struggling to see around that BMW. It has a bit of an advantage like the bulkier GT3 cars like the Bentley or the Nissan would have. And that's that advantage being the fact that there's an Audi planted in the back end of it. Oh, boys, come on. Come on, boys. There's no need for any of that afterwards either. I'm not sure if that was completely intentional contact afterwards, but it seemed very unnecessary by the both of them. But that was just real misjudgment there from Rasmussen. Sends it down the inside. He's backing out as well to let the other BMW
left
through.
For suspension damage.
Yeah, it's absolutely...
You can see that car is not in a good way.
I cannot believe that. Oh, apologies. This is when they came back on track. This is when they're off track. Here we go. Sorry, everyone. But look, he jumps out down the inside. Fair play, but he's nowhere near.
Go tight enough.
No, he's nowhere near turned in for the corner. Logan,
I think you can see it was on the brakes as well. You can see that.
It was just very, very clumsy by Andrew there, wasn't it? Very, very clumsy.
Very indeed. Unfortunately, poor Rasmussen, he's more taking himself out of the equation than anybody else. It's like disappointed parent. Worst of all, you've let yourself down.
Yeah, whose fault is it? Anyway, sorry
if
that was a bit harsh there. Logan's actually in the pits as well.
I'm having flashbacks to being a kid. It wasn't that long ago, sadly. Maybe sadly for you, Chaz.
Oh, don't make me feel old, Ed.
When I talk about how young I am, I know.
Stop it. It's 3 a.m. I can't do this anymore. Jonathan Ouellette is going through Maggots and Beckett's for what will be the final time. The clock has ticked over to 1 hour and 15 minutes. He has been really, really consistent throughout this race. Fantastic chase early on with Dave Menino, and this privateer /twisted Hulk-like Ferrari has put in a very strong Hulk-like performance, and he has certainly smashed it out of the park. Of course, he was handed the win via the failure for Dave Menino, but I'm sure he's not going to complain at that. Menino through Stowe one more time into the club chicane down the hill. He's going to really savour this moment. It's been brilliant to watch. He's certainly been in a bit of a class of his own with Dave. Harry Wills is still nearly 9 seconds back, but round the final corner, hats off everybody, and clap emojis in chat for Jonathan Ouellette, who wins the first round of the championship in the Race Anywhere World Series US. And he is over the moon with that one, as you can imagine. Harry Wills, great second place for him. That's a fantastic turnaround after what happened at Suzuka. And Daniel Tenorio is going to be the man to complete the podium. And just behind this,
Tenorio,
yeah,
going out on top. That was a great fight as well in that last phase. You have to say between himself and Koprowski. But Dean Timms rounding his way around the final corner to seize the Pro-Am class victory with Brent Bravata not far behind. We were saying Dean Timms was in a class of his own, but when they came up to the line, it was not that far apart at all. So credit to Brent Bravata and Casey Metzger for Twisted Racing. It's a Twisted Racing 1, 2, 3.
It is.
In the Pro-Ams.
And
Great
Ferraris as well.
them.
Italian 1, 2, 3 in there. Ferrari's first and third in the pros. And it's looking like it's going to be Ferrari's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 in the AMs. Now, this is Michael Fowler on his way to take the win. Florea and Plaisance right together as well in their two Ferraris for 4th and 5th. But what a drive it's been by Michael Fowler. It looked like he might have been out of sync for a few laps or so with the pit stops. We did worry about whether there was going to be any overlap, but he's got the job done. The number 54 machine crosses the line and takes the victory. A great start to the season for Michael. Very well done indeed. And not far back, Stephen Martinez chases Andrew Rasmussen to the line with that damaged Audi. And Vulture Motorsports Blue have a car on the podium. And Eclipse Racing Esports will get Justin Delano across the Delino. And he gets into the... Oh, I've got a splinter in my finger. I've got a splinter from the bottom of this barrel. But Justin Delano completes the podium in the AM class, and what a fantastic, fantastic race that was, Ed. Plenty of fun there. But what can we say? Dave Meneno, you have to be absolutely devastated for the bloke.
I'll tell you what, Chaz, don't pull a muscle trying to stretch that far for Delano, but yeah, that is hugely, hugely gutting for Meneno. At least he knows that he has it in his locker now. It's just going to be heartbreaking trying to come back from this disappointment here at Silverstone. It can do one of two things to a driver. Either it can energize them and turn them into an absolute demon on the track, putting fastest lap after fastest lap to come back after a setback, or it can rattle and shake them and can really set them up for a very bad season. But Dave Meneno, nothing he did wrong. Absolutely heartbreaking. Like you said, it's the equivalent of an engine or gearbox failure in real life racing, taking completely out of the race in an instant. But can't take away from Jonathan Ouellet's performance. He was keeping Dave Meneno honest for the whole of the way. We didn't really know if Dave Meneno was going to hold on because of the fuel equation. So Jonathan Ouellet still a worthy race victor. And actually, I think Jonathan Ouellet is in the Hulk car. We're not sure if there is a Twisted Racing entrant or if he is coming in as a privateer. But if he is a Twisted Racing entrant, then it's Twisted Racing that lock out top 3 places in Pro as well as Pro-Am.
And they're the admins of the championship as well. Did someone say fix? I'm joking. Jonathan Ouellet wins the race then, 9.1 seconds clear of Harry Wills and Daniel Tenorio. Brilliant from all three of them. Daniel was just ahead of Ryan Koprowski for the Ukrainian Air Force Riddle Rocket Racing Machine. Then Jeremy Littleton finished in 5th, but I believe he was actually in the Pro-Am class, so apologies if that is incorrect, guys. Wilson Brewer was in 6th place and 3 laps down, of course. Dave Meneno, that does not reflect his race at all. Tyler Campbell was 7 laps down. James Pearce was 18 laps down. John Cooper 20 laps down. And Lydon Lee, unfortunately, having that very, very sudden stop in the Lamborghini. We, of course, hope all is well there. Now, next up, Ed, if you could do the honours, we have our largest class of all, which was the Pro-Ams, my friend.
Oh, thank you very much, Chaz. And yeah, Dean Timms, who basically led from start to finish, didn't he? A great performance there from the British driver at the British circuit. It's almost like he knows this place very well, does Dean. Very great drive as well from the 46 Twisted Racing team driver, with teammates in behind and Brent Bravata kept him fairly honest towards the end, actually. The gap 3 seconds just under at the line for the number 11, Brent Bravata, ahead of Casey Metzger, who joins his teammates on the podium some 12 seconds back from eventual race winner Dean Timms. Then we come down to Q3 Simsport. Jay Steffi was not quite able to hold on to P3, but still a very good effort to finish just a little ways ahead as well. Very close at the line, you have to say, between himself and Earl Uriksoy in 5th place for Twisted Racing as well, with Vulture Motorsports in behind Eric Kolaga, Logan Vida, Team Prema in 7th place ahead of Gary Brown in 8th. Matthew Green in 9th, and rounding out the top 10 was Michael Kulaga. Then we come to Mark Sigelkov, driver that was struggling a little bit with his Porsche, but still very good job, just finishing outside the top 10. Andrew Rasmussen there in 12th place, ahead of Joseph Smith, 1 lap down, and Jeff Barolo, unfortunately, 31 laps down, did not take the checkered flag.
No, he did not, unfortunately, but there was a bit of attrition as that race went on. And here is our AM class. Only 5 cars on the lead lap with these guys. Michael Fowler taking a quite convincing win, but Stephen Martinez did a brilliant job in 2nd place. Justin Delano rounding out your podium. A great battle at the end for Daniel Florea and Matthew Plaisance for 4th and 5th place, with Travis Kepler, Jason Bridges, Donald Malcolm and Tom Cornett all 1 lap down. And Drew Neubauer was rounding out your top 10 there, 2 laps down from the class leader. So, we've got to that point where we would usually look to the drivers for some interviews, but unfortunately, after giving them a few minutes to get in here, it looks like we've not got anybody about to have a chat. So, really, I think the only thing we can do right now, Ed, is wrap things up, if I can get my own words out, with a few final words. It's nearly 3 a.m. here in the UK, so it's probably time for us to wrap up and go to bed anyway. But what a fantastic start to the season this has been. Plenty of fun to watch, cars everywhere, and awesome battles throughout the field, because usually in longer races like this, just over the hour mark, you do expect it to spread out, but we saw no example of that whatsoever, did we?
No, it didn't. It sets us up for a great season, doesn't it, in the Race Anywhere World Series Racing Leagues. Here, the 2nd season of this GT3 series, and to be fair, if this first race is, like we've been mentioning, anything to go by, we are in for a real treat. Jonathan Hewlett coming out on top after a very hard-fought race, and we do actually have a driver in the interview waiting room. Chaz has brought him in to have a couple of words, and it is the ever so unlucky Dave Menino.
Dave, that's an absolute nightmare of a situation. Was it just a very sudden disconnection from your end? Because we had to wait a bit of time to see what actually had caused it.
Yeah, just the internet went out for a minute, so yeah, I mean, it's just horrible timing. But I mean, I could take some positives away. Obviously, it's, was on pace for a win and had good pace and all that kind of stuff. So, obviously very, very unfortunate, but I guess it happens sometimes.
I admire how calm and collected you can be right now with that situation, but it is always, like you say, it's good to take positives from stuff like this. I mean, it was a hell of a race, a brilliant drive, a very long-term battle with Jonathan, of course. Now, one thing we did want to ask you about was the pit stop strategy. We noticed that your pit stops were quite a bit shorter than everybody else's. Would you have made it to the end without having to do any fuel saving, or were you going to be a little bit close to the line when it got there?
Yeah, no, I had plenty of fuel. I did quite a bit of saving in the first stint. I realized about halfway through that stint that I was just kind of right on the cusp of being able to go an extra lap, and so I did quite a lot of saving when Jonathan was behind me. Because I noticed that I think maybe he was running a little bit more wings because he was having a tough time gaining on me on the straight, so I was confident I could defend. And then at that point, I figured if I could take kind of a shorter fuel, then I could at least kind of get away from Jonathan, and then we could see, who was quicker, without any kind of slipstream involved. And then at that point, I, started to pull away a little bit, and it was all looking pretty good towards the end.
Yeah, indeed. It was certainly an impressive drive. That's definitely a way of putting it, and especially after Suzuka as well. It was quite. I don't want to say it's not ironic, but it's horrible how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Because of course at Suzuka it was a mistake by Harry and a technical issue there that sent him off and then gave the win to you. And this time now at Silverstone, it's at your side that there has been a technical fault or a problem with the connection, and it's given the win to somebody else. It's a tough old world, this motorsport business, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what goes around comes around. To your point, I was lucky in round one, and then super unlucky this time around. But hopefully we've had all the internet disconnects that we'll have for the rest of the season.
Well, fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed indeed for you. Of course, we hope it does continue to go well on the pace front. Now, next time out, we are at the wonderful, very, very wonderful Watkins Glen. It's going to be, I imagine, a circuit that a lot of drivers will enjoy racing, but it can be quite tough in GT3 cars, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can wear the front tires pretty easily, and there's quite a lot of heavy braking, so it'll be interesting. I've only done a couple laps since they've done the new rescan, so I'll be curious to see how that is compares to the old scan.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on there as well, Dave. But thank you very much for coming in to speak to us. Is there anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to while we've got you?
Yeah, would like to thank you guys for broadcasting. Would like to thank Harry for setting up this league. Would like to thank the SRT eSport team and our sponsors. And a big not-so-thank you to Comcast Xfinity Internet.
Love it. Absolutely love it, Dave. Well said. But thank you again for joining us, mate. Commiserations, of course, on the result, but fair play for taking the positives. And we will see you next time round at Watkins Glen. Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks, you too, guys.
Cheers. Well, like I said there, Ed, how he can be so level-headed after that. I'd have probably smashed my monitors up knowing that. I'd have destroyed the router, snapped it in half, probably eaten half of it. It's a hell of a time for it to go, especially when you're leading your race as well. It's not just like he was down in 14th place or something and disappeared off the map and we didn't notice. He was fastest throughout the whole race, leading every single lap other than the pit stops. And about 3 minutes from the end, after an hour and, 11, 12 minutes, completely goes. That's just devastating, but what a very level-headed and sound guy Dave seems to be.
Yeah, honestly, if that was me, I'd rip the router out of the wall. It would either be ending out the window or in a blender after all of that. Honestly, it'd be in bits after I was done with it, and I'd be sending very angry emails for the next week to my internet service provider. But I'll tell you what, Dave Menino, very, very graciously handling what must be a hugely disappointing moment for him. Race victory snatched away from him, did everything right, and unfortunately, he was let down by one little thing, his internet. Hopefully it holds on, and we should be seeing a re-energized Dave Menino in time for some amazing action at Watkins Glen.
Well, we certainly hope to see him do well there, and we, of course, hope to see you as well, everybody that's been watching tonight. Thank you very much for joining us here on Absolute Sim Racing for the Race Anywhere World Series US. I've been Chaz Draycott. Thank you very much to my wonderful co-commentator, Ed May. We always have a good laugh together here. And thank you to the guys and girls that sort out the championship and those behind the scenes at Absolute Sim Racing that give us the platform we need to crack on with this. And of course to those at SDK Gaming as well, this wonderful overlay and this fantastic timing screen that we get. It certainly works a charm. Thanks very much for watching there, everybody. Have a fantastic evening, and we will see you in a week's time at Watkins Glen. Have a good one.